So if you've seen my last video, you'll know where Piggy's going after the Entei event week 2. In this video, I'm going to go through my own account to see where I'm going next week. We're pretty much going through the exact same process to eliminate areas where we don't necessarily need to go to hunt anything specific, or try to find an area in which there are more things that we'll need. Of course, this is only one way you can look at which area you should hit next, but other considerations like, for example, if your area bonus at Cyan Beach is very low, you might want to get that area bonus up. Not specifically for the Suicune event that's coming, we don't have exact times yet, but maybe for the water event that will come before the Suicune event. And of course, the water event should help you prepare for Suicune event. And if history is anything to go by, the water event should have a new Pokemon, maybe a water type, to go with it. Of course, this is just speculation, so there's not really much more I can say about that, except to say, you might want a higher area bonus at Cyan Beach. It's not a problem for me. I've got a pretty decent area bonus at Cyan Beach because I spent most of the early game at Cyan Beach looking for Eevee buff to help me heal the team, but also a Totodile, and I've got a really good Feraligatr. I've got an excellent Wigglytuff, which now has been replaced by a great Gardevoir. And if you're curious, here is the rest of my area bonuses for each area. For Taupe Hollow, I'm on 50%, and that's because I spent a lot of time there before the Entei event, multiple weeks there, hunting for fire types. Snowdrop Tundra is my lowest area bonus. I've got an excellent Walrein that I can tackle this area with, but otherwise I haven't spent a lot of time there. There are a few Pokemon I still want from there, for example Delibird. And then for Lakeside, I've got a really high area bonus, and most of the things that I really want from there, I've got. So just like we did for Piggy's account, I'm going to go through each of the berry types to see what I'm missing and each of the ingredient types to see what I'm missing. The reason why I didn't go through skills type, well, that's because skill specialists, they need main skill seeds to be really good. And that's a much more costly exercise to invest in than berry or ingredients, when berry and ingredients are very strong in their own rights without having to cost you those main skill seeds. Having said that though, if you don't already have a good healer, or at least a temporary healer like a Wigglytuff, then it's a good idea to look for a good healer first, because a good energy for everyone healer will help you cover for all areas that you tackle. One funny thing to note though is for the Suicune event, we do have 2 healers that we can use that are both water types. And indeed, they're both Slowpoke's evolution, Slowking and Slowbro. Why would you have 2? Well, if we assume Suicune is a helper boost skill specialist, they will count as 2 separate types of water type Pokemon for that skill. So during the Suicune event, we may have no issue with healing if we run both Slowking and Slowbro, as opposed to trying to force a Wiggly or a Gardevoir on the team when neither are water types. Of course, the catch is, Slowbro or Slowking's healing doesn't guarantee that everyone on the team will heal, but it does have a 50-50 chance to trigger on the lowest energy Pokemon, based on the results I saw from the MathCode Discord. So in the making of Piggy's video, we used the berries and ingredient tabs after we narrowed down which berries and ingredients Piggy needed. This time I'm going to use the Pokédex option instead. And the way I'm going to narrow down the options is by firstly selecting every single filter for the typing, and then I'm going to focus on berry specialists. Of course, you need to understand that some berry specialists change types when they evolve, like Altaria and Onix. So doing this way may look a bit funny because there will be certain Pokemon that you're not seeing. For example, I've got Final Evolution on, so Onix doesn't appear as a rock type berry specialist. Alright, so let me show you my best berry specialists. I've got Walrein, which has Berry Finding S and Helping bonus. I've got Feraligatr, which has a lot of speed and Berry Finding. So immediately I can cross out Water and Ice types. I also have a Helping bonus plus Berry Finding Q bonus. I've been really lucky with ground types as well. I do have a Berry Finding Wigglytuff. I can count that as a half berry type farmer for fairy typing, because I don't really want to catch a Cleffa, because I don't really find that its skill is that useful. But besides that, my Cyan Beach favorite berry typing is covered really well by flying and water types, and because of the berry finding Wiggly. But I will leave the fairy icon on because I haven't got a good Cleffa yet. I've got a really good Typhlosion. You guys saw me invest in this one, and unfortunately my inventory went from S to L before my helping speed got upgraded in the sub skills. I've got a very nice Meganium. I haven't upgraded that helping speed S yet because it's actually the same situation as my Typhlosion. It has inventory up S at level 25. In fact, the first 3 skills are exactly the same for these 3. So I'm worried that I'll be spending 2 more sub-skill seeds before I can even upgrade that helping speed S. And I'm pretty happy with this. I don't think I'll ever reinvest in a Meganium, so I'm going to cross out fire and grass types now. So fire and grass types are sorted, ground types are sorted. I have 2 excellent Pokemon to cover electric types. I've got Tupichu, who has berry finding, helping speed, and speed of help up. Skill trigger is also nice, so very nice. Raichu, I'm sorted for electric types. I also have the Halloween Hat Pikachu, which has helping bonus and berry finding and skill trigger M. Of course, unfortunately, it does have speed of help down, but otherwise it's still really, really good. And they can work together to help Raikou if I ever get a good one to invest in, or if I ever need one for an electric island. So electric berries also very much set. I have a berry finding Gengar, so it helps me with ghost types while I don't have a Shuppet. So I don't have a good Shuppet for ghost berry typing, but a Gengar's actually pretty fast, and with berry finding S can come pretty close to a Banette in terms of berry output. My berry finding doesn't actually harm my ingredient production because I've got so much inventory in this Gengar. It's got inventory M and L, and it's got speed of help up, so it's quite good. It's been my early game mushroom farmer. Unfortunately though, I will have to at some point reinvest in a new Ghastly because I don't have level 60 mushroom unless they release another mushroom farmer at some point in the future so that I don't have to reinvest in a Gengar. But just to show you guys the point I'm making about the berry output of a berry finding S Gengar versus a berry finding S Banette, well, it's actually quite similar to the situation of Dragonite versus Altaria. So while Banette is the berry specialist of ghost type berries, it has a slower frequency, whereas Gengar has a faster frequency. So to begin with, there are more productions from Gengar. So overall, Banette still produces more berries, but if both have berry finding S, Gengar actually doesn't lose out by as much as you'd think, despite not being a berry specialist. So just to prove that point, if both ghost types have berry finding S, the berry output of Gengar is actually not that far off that of Banette. You're looking at about a 20% difference, even though Banette produces 50% more berries. But because of the slower speed, it becomes a problem. Although the contrast is much bigger between Dragonite and Altaria because Altaria is exceptionally slow, whereas Dragonite is super fast. As you can see here, the berry output between a Dragonite with berry finding and an Altaria with berry finding, well, it's actually even closer. We're looking about nearly just a 10% difference between the two. But don't take that as saying that your Dragonite must have berry finding S, because if your Dragonite has helping bonus, ingredient finder, those are all still great skills for it to focus on what it's supposed to be doing. Ingredients, for example, herbs. I'm just saying that with berry finding, it nearly beats an Altaria, a berry specialist, of the same stats. And in the meantime, over farming the ingredient. So as a result of that very fast speed, Gengar, I can consider it as a half berry specialist for Ghost Berry. So for my situation, just like that of fairy typing, because of berry finding S Wiggly, I'm not in a rush to get a Ghost Berry specialist, Shuppet Banette. But I'll leave this icon selected anyway because at some point I'll probably still want a Banette. For Dragon Berry typing, I'm pretty set because I do have a berry finding Altaria that will soon get helping speed as well. I actually also have a triple herb Dragonite that has a berry finding. Well, currently it's Dragonair, but I'm pretty set for Dragon Berries. As for fighting type berries, I have a berry finding S Beware, which is excellent. It does triple corn. It is not going to be my main fighting type berry farmer, but it will help because corn is still currently used in a lot of the strongest dishes. So if I need fighting type berry, I could run it every day anyway, because I actually need those corn ingredients. Having said that, I actually do have some excellent Mankeys. My best one is Mankey D Berry. It has speed of help up and berry finding. Everything else is kind of mid on this Mankey, but if I need the fighting type berry, it's ready to go. And the other excellent option that I have is this one here that is helping bonus and helping speed M. So I'm going to take off fighting type berries because I don't need to farm that. Now there are no psychic type berry specialists at this stage, so I'm going to take that off. I do have a Gardevoir. It doesn't have berry finding, but it's still fine because it does a lot of healing. It's a very powerful skill specialist. As for normal type berries, I do have this Naptata. So it has berry finding S and helping speed, in fact relatively early. So it's going to be a very powerful addition to the team whenever I need a normal type berry farmer. I don't have a good Slarkoth, but Vigoroth's berry output is about the same as Raticate, so I don't really need a second berry specialist unless for some reason normal type berries become the meta for a certain week. The main advantage of Slarkoth is that when it evolves into Slarking, it's the second best ingredient magnet Pokemon in this game, just behind Vaporeon. But in that case, I'd actually rather invest in a Vaporeon instead. I don't have a good Slarkoth, but I think I'm happy to not have to hunt any more normal type berry specialists. Next is flying type. I do have Dodgeo, which is a very good berry specialist for flying types. I do have berry finding and helping bonus, but that helping bonus is locked at level 100. Am I upset? Not at all, because I've got helping speed M, I've got skill trigger, which is, it's not negative. It's not like ingredient finder, and I've got a good nature as well. So I'm overall really happy with this Dodgeo. So we're gonna take flying type off. Next, let's take a look at dark types. I do have Help Doom here, who is a helping bonus Houndoom, and it's got helping speed. In fact, it's actually quite good, but its goodness isn't seen in itself. So when I collect berries and stuff, it doesn't actually produce a lot. What it does is it boosts the rest of the team. If the rest of the team also has helping bonus though, then we'll see this Houndoom in full potential, with it reaching a maximum speed of 35% time reduction, meaning it would be equivalent to having berry finding S, if not a bit better. So overall, I'm not upset about this Help Doom, but I think I can do better at some point. I would like one with berry finding and maybe speed and helping bonus. But I'm not in a rush to catch another Houndour, so it'll be a good temporary dark type berry specialist. So just like ghost type and fairy type, I'm going to leave a question mark on that dark type berry, which leaves me with the remaining berry types where I'm actually struggling that I haven't got a good berry specialist for. Thankfully, none of these types are urgent to need because poison berries, bug berries, and steel berries are not in any islands as a favorite berry yet, besides of course possibly on green grass. Rock berries, well, that is a favorite berry at Taupe, but the only option for rock berry specialist is Onyx, and Onyx is very hard to catch for most people. Even for myself, it costs a lot to catch. So where possible, you would try to work around having to need an Onyx anyway. And of course, the same applies to steel type, because that berry specialist for steel type is Steelix, and there's no one else right now to cover steel types. So in other words, the ones that I actually really need to hunt for and are actually cheap enough to hunt are the berry specialists for poison and bug, because I don't have any coverage for those two types. Looking through my account, my best berry specialist for poison berry is this egg bok, which has helping speed and helping bonus, and then much later on has a bit more helping speed, but otherwise it could be better. As for bug types, I'm really struggling. In fact, I don't really have any usable ones. I have a pincer that has berry finding, but it's an ingredient specialist. It can do some apples, but I don't want the level 60 to be sausage, so it's a bit compromised to actually use this pincer. The only other good one that I have is a berry finding that's locked at a level 100 with some speed that's locked at 75. So this is actually an unusable metapod. So if I were to focus on berry hunting, I would actually start with Caterpie and Ekans. And then I check where they spawn, so Caterpie spawns at Cyan Beach and Ekans spawns in, well, pretty much every area except Snowdrop Tundra. As for the other berry typing that I could potentially improve on, I've got Houndour, Shuppet, Onyx, and Cleffa. Houndour being available at Taupe Hollow, and I don't want to go to Greengrass because that's where events happen. Shuppet also found in Taupe Hollow. Onyx also found in Taupe Hollow, and Cleffa being able to spawn in almost any area. Considering all these factors, it actually makes a lot of sense for me to go to Taupe Hollow to improve my account overall. Otherwise, I should be going to Cyan Beach for Caterpie. As for looking at ingredient coverage, it's a bit more complicated because you can't look at an ingredient specialist in isolation. We'll cover this in another video, but just to give you guys a heads up, and I'm aware of this situation, is that, look, if you actually have a Tyranitar that has only beans at level 30 and 60, it actually farms more beans than even Golem with triple beans. The reason is Tyranitar is just that good. But the problem is if you have Tyranitar doing beans, then who's going to do ginger? And that's the idea of this mono ingredient spread, is that not only should one Pokemon focus on doing one job, it also shouldn't take away another Pokemon's job if they can actually do it. Otherwise, you end up having to invest 2 Tyranitar having both kinda suck. So ingredient specialists we always consider as a whole. We have to look at every single ingredient specialist together. And this chart hasn't really changed since the last time we went through it. So for myself, I have an Abomasnow that covers eggs, so that I don't need a Delibird with pure eggs in order to help me farm eggs. So this is my Snomlet, and as you can see, it's got double eggs. It's got some decent skills. It's got berry finding, skill trigger. It doesn't have ingredient finder until much later, but at least for now, I don't have to get a Delibird for eggs. Thankfully, the other ingredient that Abomasnow can do, tomatoes, and I'm ignoring the third ingredient at level 60, so I'm just talking about tomatoes and eggs. Well, with tomatoes, there's a lot of different farmers that can actually cover for tomatoes. And so because of that redundancy, we give Abomasnow the role to do eggs. I am also very happy with my corn coverage with Corneography having berry finding, but also ingredient finder at level 50 and ingredient finding up. So if you've seen my video of catching this, I called this a perfect beware, not because it's actually perfect, because perfection is almost impossible, but because it's perfect enough for me to never have to go back to hunting Stuffle. So I'm pretty set for corn and I don't need beware. I do have an excellent temporary sausage farmer, and I say temporary is because at level 60 it will nerf the amount of sausages dropped on Dupemander here, but this Dupemander was an early game investment. I needed something to get the game going to farm ingredients, and at the time I did look at Ingredient Magnet as though it's a powerful skill, but at such an early stage of the game, this was July 21st, pretty much right near the start of the game. We didn't have a calculator, we didn't have an understanding of skill trigger, how often skills trigger, what the odds of skill triggering were. We didn't even understand that with full inventory, you couldn't trigger a skill. So because of all that, I had invested in this Charizard. It wasn't a mistake so much as, well, I needed something anyway, but now I'm ready to change. In fact, if you've been following me in my hunt for Entei, you would have seen that I've caught this new Charmander that has triple sausage, so will never get nerfed in terms of sausage production. It also has helping speed, helping bonus, which are excellent skills for anybody, any specialists, and it has ingredient finding up, so this will be my main sausage farmer. So I'm pretty happy with sausages. As for herbs, I currently run Herbtini 2, which was one of my mono herb ingredient specialists for herbs, and it has berry finding. Unfortunately, besides a good nature, everything else is kind of mid. I don't really need that much skill trigger or research EXP, but I went with it anyway because I needed it for the Entei event. I may or may not push forward and just go all the way with this as my main Dragonite, depending on the next time I go back to Lakeside and if I ever get a better Dratini. But for now, that Dragonair actually provides me with enough herbs. In fact, it helped me throughout the entire Entei event. And strangely enough, in terms of oil coverage, I have this Snooze Gunk that I caught a long time ago. It also has Helping Bonus, which is an excellent skill. It doesn't have Ingredient Finder till level 100, but because it's triple oil and it's got Helping Bonus, I'm pretty happy with it. I don't think I'll need to hunt for any more Croagunks unless they come hungry, then maybe I'll feed them a biscuit and see what happens. I definitely am in no urgency to hunt another oil farmer. And plus, reinvesting a Croagunk isn't quite as hard as reinvesting a Dragonite anyway, so if I do manage to catch a better one in the future, that's fine. As for potatoes, I have Tomato Bell, and once again, Victory Bell is a tomato farmer as well at base level. You could have it as triple tomato, but then you'll have to find someone to do potatoes. My personal recommendation is to use Victory Bell for potatoes. My one has Helping Bonus, Ingredient Finder, and Ingredient Finding Up, so it's an excellent Victory Bell. So between a Bomber Snow farming some tomatoes, Victory Bell farming some tomatoes, while doing their job of farming eggs and potatoes, tomato tends to be less of a problem than other ingredients. Now, we actually briefly talked about my Gengar already. It doesn't have level 60 mushroom, but I never actually caught a level 60 mushroom. Ghastly, like none of them have level 60 mushroom. So despite being level 50, at some point I will actually need to reinvest a mushroom farmer unless they release a new one. Some other Pokemon do mushrooms at level 60, but then they don't do it at level 30 and definitely not at base level, which is a problem too because overall it's not a lot of mushrooms. Even if I were to use an alternative like Absol or Bomber Snow for mushrooms. And in actual fact, a Bomber Snow and Absol are the only alternatives to mushroom farming, and they only have it at level 60 for ingredient specialists anyway. Now, I don't actually need to farm a Tails farmer, and that's because, well, for now I have this berry finding Slowbro. Unfortunately, if level 60 gets released, then it will be farming more tomatoes, in fact at 5 times tomatoes compared to Tails. So at some point I will need to reinvest, especially in light of Suicune's event. Thankfully, I do have a lot of options to reinvest. There's Ditto, which I've invested one that has more leak, but this one does have Tails. If level 60 comes along, it has Ingredient Finding and Speed, which is nice. Then I've got a lot of other options for Tails. I've got this one here that has Speed, Ingredient Finding, Skill Trigger. This one's shiny, but otherwise not that good. I've got this one here, again has Skill Trigger, which is nice because Slowpoke is a skill specialist. It's got Helping Speed. It doesn't have Ingredient Finder, so maybe this one will be a Slowking for my Suicune event. This one here has Ingredient Finder, Speed, and Ingredient Finding Up. So that's nice for Tails. So maybe this can be another Slowbro if I were to reinvest. This one's surprisingly good. I caught this really early on, August 2023. I don't need to invest a lot of main seeds because it's got skill level up, and I don't plan to use Slowbro as a long-term healer anyway, maybe mainly for the Suicune event. And it has Skill Trigger. Unfortunately, that Skill Trigger can't upgrade. And it's got Ingredient Finder, which will help me farm more Tails. So I do have quite a few choices for Tails. Weirdly enough, my main leak farmer is actually a Ditto. It's got Ingredient Finding, Helping Bonus, Speed of Help Up. I do have a Doug Trio, but it doesn't have Ingredient Finding. It does have Speed, and I've only invested to level 30, so I still got some candies left. I think I'm going to improve on my Doug Trio at some point, but temporarily I'll be using this Ditto to help me farm leaks. And again, because of the spread of ingredients, at some point I'll need to switch the Ditto to the Tails Ditto if in the future I actually need more Tails. So it's a bit of an awkward situation for leaks. For now, I will circle leak because I do think at some point I'll need to switch my leak farmers. As for beans, I didn't even realize I had this one. I remember naming this, but I didn't realize I had such a good one. I've got Beans Dude, who has helping bonus, helping speed, ingredient finder. So an excellent beans farmer. When I need beans, I will switch over to this Geodude. I did previously invest in a beans golem as well, but that one, which I named Gozlem, it mainly just has helping speed and inventory, and so the stats aren't as great. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with my bean selection. For Ginger though, I do have a slightly awkward situation. My berry tar is berry finding, so it does a lot of berry output when I needed it during Taupe Hollow at the time when I was using it as Pupitar, but now it's evolving into Tyranitar and it doesn't focus on Ginger at level 30. Thankfully, it does focus at level 60 on Ginger, so once level 60 gets released, the amount of beans that get farmed will be reduced and then compensated for by more Ginger farming, which is exactly what I want for Tyranitar. So do I need to reinvest and wait for a triple Ginger Larvitar? Given the cost of investing in a Larvitar as pseudo legendary, I may or may not. Its stats are berry finding and skill level up and ingredient finding up. So overall, a decent Tyranitar, especially at level 60 when it stops focusing on beans. Although I am a little worried that with such a low inventory relative to the level 60 drop amounts, it may still not be enough Gingers when new dishes come along for the level 60 release. My alternative is to reinvest in La Ginger here, who has ingredient finding up. It has inventory, which is going to be quite good at level 60. It's got helping bonus way too late, and otherwise, EXP up is not a bad thing at all. I wouldn't say it's a lot better than my current Tyranitar, so I will just keep an eye on this space for now, but I don't need to hunt another Ginger farmer. So we're going to cross that out as well. Now for tomatoes, I actually have a decent tomato farmer, and it is not Mr. Mime or Victory Bell, it is actually my Venusaur that it does tomatoes at level 30. I don't want a Venusaur that focuses level 30 on tomatoes. I would much prefer it to do honey because there's no one else that can do honey except Pinsir, but then Pinsir is so hard to find and catch. So I would much rather a triple honey Bulbasaur. So at some point I do need to switch. So I'm okay, I'm semi-okay for tomatoes. Do I have a future option for tomatoes? Well, I do have Mr. Tomato here, who farms triple tomatoes. It does have ingredient finder and helping speed, otherwise neutral nature, so not super good, but given that tomato is a relatively common ingredient, I'm not overly worried. So I can use this Mr. Mime for tomatoes. Now, bear in mind that Mr. Mime is not the best at tomatoes. In fact, Victory Bell does tomatoes better, but if you invest a Victory Bell for tomatoes, then the problem is who's going to be doing potatoes. So I think I'm okay actually for tomatoes. Temporarily, I'll be using Venusaur, but at some point I'll switch over to Mr. Mime for tomatoes. I could even switch over to an Abomasnow with triple tomatoes at some point, if I ever get a good egg farmer that is Delibird. So I'm not in a rush to hunt Delibird, but I will be on the lookout for one that has triple eggs so that I can eventually replace Abomasnow as the egg farmer. But is it actually that important to have a Delibird that's triple eggs compared to having an Abomasnow that does double eggs and it still largely farms eggs at level 60? Let's compare the stats at level 60. Now, of course, level 60 hasn't actually been unlocked, so these numbers are going to be a little bit inaccurate. But if we use theoretical amounts, then actually Delibird doesn't farm a lot more eggs than Abomasnow. It does farm more, but not a lot more, as long as the Abomasnow does have eggs at level 30 and level 60. Where Delibird shines though is if we were to set them at level 30, so the current state of the game, then Delibird will produce a lot more eggs than Abomasnow, because Abomasnow's egg production is being nerfed by a 50-50 chance of landing the tomato as an option as well. Whereas at level 60 is only a 33% chance. So I'm actually not overly worried as long as level 60 comes along at some point about egg farming. So for now, I will put a question mark on that. I do have a problem with my milk farmers at the moment and cacao farmers. And that's because my main Blastoise focuses too much on cacao. I would actually prefer that level 60 to be milk, because by the time level 60 comes along, I'm hoping to actually find an Absol to do cacao instead. Unfortunately, my current one, and again this was invested very early on, it doesn't have milk as a focus even at level 60. It focuses too much on cacao. So this is my main cacao farmer at this moment. So I do think unless a new Pokemon gets released that covers milk, I do think I will need to restart my Blastoise line. My current cacao alternative is this Absol here, but it will only be viable at level 60. At level 30, it focuses too much on apples. It does have inventory though, which is very important for an Absol because it just drops way too many ingredients at a time. I do have this other Squirtle, which would have been a better early game investment instead, to have milk, cacao, milk, because in the early game, hunting Absol is out of the question. So at least you have a cacao farmer, but then at level 60, it'll go back to focusing on Blastoise. So a milk, cacao, milk Squirtle is actually a really good investment early on. And thankfully, this one actually has ingredient finder and speed of help up. So those are all good stats. But at this stage of the game, I want triple milk for a Squirtle, so then I can have a triple cacao for an Absol. So in other words, the hunt is still on for a good Squirtle and a good Absol. If level 60 comes along though, I then don't need to hunt Absol because I can use the one that have mix of both apples and cacao. And of course, we've already talked about Venusaur. I need to hunt a mono honey Venusaur. Kangaskhan is just too rare. I've never even caught one, so I'm just going to take those two out of the question. Comfey, you guys should know by now, it's like an early game corn farmer, but it doesn't do the job very well. You should at some point switch to Beware, so we'll cross that out as well. I don't need a Comfey. I've already got the Cacao Blastoise as the temporary option. I'll need a Milk Blastoise at some point. I don't mind Delibird doing apples if level 60 comes along, because then egg will be done by Abomasnow. But basically, who will be my main apple farmer will just depend on, well, which one I decide to invest in first. Whoever I decide to invest in first, be it an apple Delibird or an apple Pinsir. Thankfully, apple farming, there are other options like a Nightcap Pikachu, but also some berry specialists like Raichu or Raticate that can help as well. Because I'm hunting for a triple honey Bulbasaur, I don't need to hunt a honey Pinsir. So that means the main ones I need to focus on are Bulbasaur, Blastoise, Dugtrio, and then it will be very nice to also get Delibird and Absol. So these are the 5 Pokemon that I'm hunting now for ingredients. So now let's take a look at where these 5 Pokemon spawned. I've got Delibird, Bulbasaur, Absol, Diglett, and Squirtle that I would consider hunting. Squirtle is available at Cyan Beach and Lapis Lakeside. Bulbasaur is at Lapis Lakeside, whereas Delibird and Absol are both at Snowdrop Tundra, and Diglett is available at Cyan Beach and Taupe Hollow. But noting that Delibird and Absol are expensive catches, they don't come by easily because of their friendship point requirements, I'm going to rule out Snowdrop Tundra for now, since there's not much else I need from there anyway. As for Lapis Lakeside, I don't need either of the 3 relatively new Pokemon, that is Dragonite, Beware, or Gardevoir, so I'm not thinking of hitting Lakeside anytime soon unless a new Pokemon gets released. So again, it's going to be between Cyan Beach and Taupe Hollow. But because it's more likely that the water event before the Suicune event will happen at Cyan Beach, and my Cyan Beach is already at 40% area bonus, I'm thinking I'll spend a little bit more time at Taupe Hollow to hunt, and then after that, either go to Snowdrop or Lakeside. So there you have it, guys. I'm most likely going to be at Taupe Hollow for the next week to hunt for some berry and some ingredient specialists. And once you figure out which area you're going to, make sure you also figure out which sleep type that you'll need, which I'm not going to cover in this video because that's not the topic of this video. Thank you for watching, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments section below. I will try to answer as much of them as possible. Don't forget to like and subscribe.